What's up guys, Grim here. Today we're going to do another EvilBane video and I have been just having a blast with this game. I thought I'd just play it casually, but for like the last 6 months or something like that, I have been obsessed with this game. It's just an amazing mobile game that I've just been having a blast with, and I think I played it every single day of since I first started the game, and I've been so obsessed with it that I've actually started a second account. That way, whenever one character runs out of energy, I can go to the other one and play it some. So this video is going to be on what the new meta for Vango is at this particular time. Now things can change. Keep that in mind, that whenever they come out with new gear and new stats, it changes the game quite a bit. So we'll go over what the initial set is supposed to be for Vango, and then what the advanced set would most likely be. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the contributing stats that most Vangos want to go with whenever they first start the game. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to my gear here. This Vango here, I've been working on him he was my very first character, so for 6 months, 7 months, whatever I've been playing the game. I put a lot of work into him. Now, a lot of the time, I did not know exactly what stats to go with. I've been learning all the time, and what really changed up the game for me is whenever I joined the best guild in the game, or at least on my particular server. I think there's servers, but I just know that my particular guild is like the #1 guild on the entire game for my server, I guess. And there's another guild that rivals us quite a bit, but it's not quite too bad as long as we come out right from the get-go. Because a lot of times whenever the new season starts, if our guys aren't prepared to start doing guild battles right off the bat, then they can fall behind and another guild can take over. As you can see, the #1 guild right now is Venom, but this is my guild, Abyss, here. I'm actually in the sister guild of it right now, which is like the number 14 guild or so on the list. But it's just a sister guild of the main guild here, which is Abyss. But of course I get all my knowledge and stuff from the best players in the game, so it's really cool to see these guys and be able to get knowledge from them on the Line app. Alright, so let's get right to the point. What should your Vango have whenever you first start the game? Alright, so the very first set that you want to go with is Berserker gear. Now this is going to have a set bonus of critical damage, which is like a huge stat, specifically for Vango. Other classes like the Luke character, or you know, just in particular, critical damage and crit rate are two really good stats. But for Vango, a Vango can get really high in critical damage. I mean, even as high as like 900% or something like that. So your attacks will do 900% more damage than they would normally. That is an insane amount of damage. Now, the big downside of it is Vangos can't really get real high critical rate. That really sucks, because there is a new stat out that the new accessories can actually obtain, and let me try to show it to you real fast. On the Fortress Ring here, you will see critical hit resist, and this is at 4.1%, which isn't real high, but I don't have it leveled up either. And also, people can get critical hit resist as one of their substats too as they're leveling it up. Well, there's a second accessory that can also have that stat, and that is the Sharpshooter Necklace. You can actually get critical hit resist on it as well, up to a point of having like in the 30s of critical hit resist. If we look at the details here, right here, the critical hit resist. If I'm wearing my Fortress Ring, I would have the 4.1%. But some people are stacking it with those two accessories and getting the right substats to where they're in the 30s on this. Now, I have to explain, that does not mean that 30% of the time they're going to resist your critical hit. It doesn't work that way in EvilBane. Basically, if they have a 32% critical hit resist and I have a 32% critical rate, or I'm going to land critical hits 32% of the time, if they've got 32% critical hit resist, I will not critical on them one time. It completely negates, on a level field. So if they have 10% critical hit resist and I have 10% critical rate, I will never critical hit on them at all. And that really changed the game whenever that came out. So, but the thing is that only the top players are able, like in the top guilds for the most part, are getting like the right substats and all the gear that they want to get, such as the right substat with critical hit resist on their sharpshooter and also critical hit resist on their fortress ring in order to get that really high critical resist. All right, so that makes it to where if you're not at the top of the game and you're fighting a lot of the people that are less skilled and stuff like that, or else don't have their characters built up as much as like the #1 guild and stuff does, then you just want to go with critical damage gear with the Berserker set and go ahead and get critical rate in every single piece of gear that you can get, because you need as much critical rate as you can get. If you look, every single piece of gear that I have has critical rate on it, except for maybe this cape here. There's just a couple items that it doesn't have critical rate on, but I try to get it on every single piece. So that's what we want to go with. Now, if somebody is wearing like a fortress ring with the right substat, but they don't have the right substat on the sharpshooter necklace, then maybe I'll be able to land some critical hits on them and do a lot of damage. But I gotta mainly focus on the people that aren't in the #1 guilds or #2 or #3 guilds that don't have that substat, and I'll be able to land critical hits on them. So the Berserker gear is what you want with critical rate. Now, a really, really good secondary stat that you probably want to go with is either critical damage to make it to where you hit even harder, or you want to have some kind of defense, and that's where people will do evasion on their Berserker gear. Now, keep in mind that accuracy works in the same way that critical hit resist does. Accuracy on a weapon will negate evasion. So if your evasion is like 20% and they have an accuracy of 20%, they will negate your evasion altogether. You will never dodge their attacks. So keep that in mind. So for initial sets, go with critical rate, Berserker gear, and try to get evasion as a secondary stat, or even critical damage. That would be fine as well. But naturally, you want to have some kind of defense, or else you're a complete glass cannon and you'll get blown up anytime somebody lands a decent hit on you. Now, another stat that you kind of want to shoot for is some accuracy. That way that people aren't going to dodge all of your attacks. So if you can get a weapon with accuracy on it or something like that, that would be a very good thing to have. I don't think my accuracy, I'm at 0% with this particular gear on. But, if you get some accuracy, even as high as like 15% or something, as long as you'll be able to get around that evasion a decent amount, that will help you quite a bit. All right, as far as a belt, you want to go with either the Cursed belt or the Discipline belt. Both are really good. Most people are going with the Cursed belt for the skill damage. That's cool. All right, so as far as weapon, initial weapon that you probably want to go with is this Hades sword. It's like considered one of the best PvP weapons in the game because it has instant attacks, such as stuff that doesn't like take a second to set up. A lot of times whenever you hit one of the abilities on other weapons, it'll show the guy like charging up and they'll try to charge into you. Well, it gives you the perfect opportunity to dodge or whatever else. This actually has instant attacks to where it's just going to jump right into the opponent and damage them and possibly blow them up with a really good critical hit. Alright, so this is a really good starter weapon, and also it can be held into late game as well as like the latest game, actually the #1 guild in the game or so. Because one of the best Vangos in the game is actually a Vango from the main guild that I'm in, which is Abyss. Let's go ahead and look at him real fast. we're competing with Venom quite a bit, so they got the jump on us this season, and it looks like they're going to get the #1 spot for the 2nd week in a row. But we were having the #1 spot for like 6 or 7 weeks in a row, so we had some unfortunate like occurrences happen to where some of our people couldn't use their guild charges like they needed to, and that gave us like falling behind right from the get-go, and we just couldn't win this season. All right, so if you see one of the best Vangos in the game here, this is Gasman. He's from the main guild that I'm in. He has an evasion rate of 62%. Now that's really, really good. All of his gear, he kind of tried to shoot for critical rate as well as evasion in it. The thing is that the new meta that everybody is using on their loot characters is a command sword that gives really high accuracy. So it kind of negates his evasion altogether. And then if they have like the right accessories to critical hit resist, then his critical rate is down the drain too. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice that you guys couldn't see everything right behind me. But yeah, critical hit resist in this area here. Yeah, I'm kind of blocking the stats. I apologize for that. All right, so initial set, Berserker gear, critical rate, and probably evasion or critical damage. Now, as you get past that, well, let's go ahead and go into cloaks. What kind of cloak do you want? Well, let's go ahead and look at the options here. A lot of people will go with like a Dracula cloak, the vampire cloak, because it'll have a little bit of life steal on it to where it'll help you out in dungeons and stuff like that. But that's not the ideal cloak. One of the new cloaks that they came out with is, let's see it here, Vango cloak. This is the cloak you want to shoot for. This is the Dark Annihilator's cloak, and it has ignore defense attack as well as skill damage in it. Those are really, really good stats. But if you can't get one of these premium cloaks, the Fighter's Cloak is a decent one. A lot of people go for that since it has skill damage to it. It's up to you guys, but this is the one I recommend the most for a basic cloak. And once you can get one of the premium cloaks, go with this one, the Dark Annihilator's cloak. Alright, so what else do we need to look at? Belt, of course I said disciplinary or the curse belt. Curse belt has skill damage, and the disciplinary one has ignore defense attack. Now, as far as what is the meta of Vango, what do you want to get for the best possible character that you can get that's going to compete with the best guilds and players in the game? Well, everybody else will get blown up by critical hits, but in order to compete against the people that have the critical hit resist gear, have accuracy with command swords and stuff like that, you have to go a different route with your Vango. Alright, so what gear would you want on a Vango instead? Well, you can go with the Angelic Raven gear if you actually have it and have the right substats, because this has skill damage and basically ignore defense attack. That's basically what that stat is there for the other set bonus there. That's a really good one to have. You can stack that and go with it, such as in the Slayer set here. This also has that stat. It goes up to 320. This one has up to 300, but also has skill damage and defense to it. So the Angelic set is probably the premium set that you would want to go with. Demonic can also, of course, get the crit rate and crit damage. But if people are negating your critical hits because you can't go really high in your crit rate, then Angelic is way better. But for basic sets, Slayer set here with the defense penetration damage, it says it's actually ignore defense attack is what it really means there. And then another set that you can go with is the Druid set here, which is skill damage. These two stats, the ignore defense attack and skill damage, do not have a counter to them right now, besides, gear that reduces damage altogether. It does not have like the evasion accuracy counter or the critical rate and critical hit resist. Those are negating stats. Whereas skill damage doesn't have anything negating it, neither does the ignore defense attack. So those are two sets that you can power up and be really good in the meta. Now, will these sets of gear be really good against basic people? Not really. I mean, they are decent, but they're not going to be like huge damaging sets of gear like the critical hit stuff is. The critical rate and critical damage gear blow people up, whereas this is more going to wear into the person, stacking this stat here or skill damage or something like that. I think the highest skill damage that you can get is probably like around 150%. So it's not super high, whereas like if you stack critical damage on a Vango, you can get up to 900%. You know, it's just completely a different level, but the skill damage cannot get negated. So that's a big thing. So if you go with skill damage, say you go with the Druid set, the substats that you want to go with is, of course, more skill damage or skill cooldown reduction. That way that you'll be able to use your skills more often and do these bigger hits. So, yeah, that's what you want to go with that. Belts, you want to stay the same with Disciplinary, which has the Ignore Defense Attack, or Cursed Belt. Let's see, Cloak, same story here. Dark Annihilator, it has skill damage and Ignore Defense Attack, which are the two stats that you want to go with in the meta. And as far as weapons, now these weapons are, it's kind of a choice thing here, because the Hades sword is still amazing at the later levels, so you can get one with you know, skill damage or ignore defense attack and power it up, get it real high level, get it up to limit break 40 if you want. Or you can go with the magic weapons. Now these magic weapons are pretty cool, but they're, you know, it's all about choice here. So the bloodthirsty axes are a really good option because they have it to where now the main ability here, which is blood ritual, it actually gives you lifesteal and boosts up your skill damage by 40%. Really good stuff, right? Well, that's not really what these axes are all about. This main ability here, the Zeus one, this will basically be a heat-seeking missile that you fire at somebody. Whenever they're moving, it's going to follow them and hit them unless they, you know, do the roll. And if it hits them, most of the time it will one-shot people. This ability hits so hard for some reason, and the fact that it pretty much heat seeks you, it's like you either dodge it or you're done most of the time. So this is a huge ability, and a lot of people use it, especially in arena. This is like the ultimate arena weapon here. And then this is the other weapon that is a very good option. This is the Diabolic Soul Stealer's broadsword. Now the real good thing about this is this ability right here called Flame Assault. Now it screams and inflicts fire damage, additionally stun up to 3 enemies. Now you might think, stun, that's amazing, that's great, that would be great in every situation. No. This is bad translation. This is originally a Korean game or so, and it does not stun the opponents. It fears them. It makes them run around all over the place, which is terrible in arena, you know, the 1 versus 1 format, but it is really good in guild battles. So if you're part of a guild that's trying to really win these guild battles and get up in the ranks, this is a really good weapon because it fears them and they start running around all over the place. And in 1v1, that makes it harder for you to land your abilities. So you don't want to use a fear a lot of the times. I mean, stuns are amazing in arena, but this does not stun, it fears. And somebody that's running around, it's really hard to land your abilities on them. But in guild combat, and this will fear up to 3 people, and then your 3 teammates, you know, you and 2 other people, you're probably going to be able to land a big attack on them while they're running around feared, and it's going to be free damage and most likely win you the fight a lot of the time. So this is a really good guild battle magic weapon, and the bloodthirsty axes are amazing 1v1 arena weapons, but the Hades swords are just good altogether, you know, with its instant attacks and really hard hitting abilities. So yeah, real good options there. All right, so that's basically the meta of Vango. I don't think there's anything else that I really need to go over. Like I said, the critical hit and critical damage is so amazing early on in the game. But once you get at the top level, as soon as you're fighting the best players in the game, the new stat of critical hit resist is just going to negate your critical hits as a Vango. If you're a Kara character, the female character, you can actually stack your critical hit high enough to where the critical hit resist just isn't going to stop you. You're still going to land critical hits like crazy. Let me show you real fast. If we look at my main guild here in Abyss, and then we look at the guild master. Oh, he's right at the top. But he plays a Kara character here, and she has 46% critical rate and 519% critical damage. So even if they're stacking their critical hit resist pretty high, he's still going to have, you know, some critical rate above that to where he's going to be able to land those big attacks and be able to win the matches. So yeah, Kara's can actually stack it really high, and I think he's actually missing some items. For the most part, he's all geared out with the right stuff, but as you can tell, he didn't even go with critical hit on every piece of gear, which he could have, but he did critical rate on some of it. And this is amazing gear. I mean, this is an amazing character altogether. Very hard-hitting a character, and he often places in the top 10 in Arena, the 1v1 format, every season almost, and just can really dominate the game. So, but as far as Vango, you can't go that high on critical rate. Even if you have critical rate in every single piece of gear, you just can't do it. So yeah, the meta is around getting away from critical rate once you're at the top of the game. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, just post them in the comment section below. I'll try to answer the questions as best as I can. I've learned so much since my last EvilBane videos, especially chatting with the best players in the game now, as I do every day, and they've really taught me a lot about how to play the game. So I think the next video that I'm going to do a meta on is Luke, because my other character that I have is a Luke, and I can show you guys exactly what to go with at this current time for Luke, and everything can be subject to change with every new stat or gear that comes out. So, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash that like button. As usual, my name is Grim, and I'll see you next time.